This is Christoph Yalik.
This is Just Janet.
And this is K. Colley.
And this is
the Just Nuggets Podcast.
Welcome back to another episode of the Just Nuggets Podcast. I'm sure you all have been saying, where's Just Nuggets Podcast at? Well, we're back. That's all that matters. And we have Christoph Yalik here. We have JJ's Just Janet checking in. How you doing today?
I'm doing good. Glad to be back. Let's get busy.
Yeah, I was going to say, much like the Nuggets offense. Like the Nuggets offense, we've been a little slow.
Yeah, I'd say that us we're very much like the Nuggets. There's been days we haven't shown up, and there's been days that they haven't shown up.
Yeah, it has.
Mm-hmm.
And but I think more so than anything, it's just we just wanted to let the season breathe a little bit more. I think last year and the years before it was like every content all the time, but it's been good to kind of watch Nuggets basketball and not just be every day talking and giving random opinions, but like really watch the game. So I think it's gonna be a fun episode. And in doing so, I would love just to kind of talk about where you see the Nuggets at right now. Currently, we're 5-5 in our last 10. I just want to get our record right. But in general, what do you see from the Nuggets? I think we're 2 games above 500. I think we're 12-10. I just want to confirm that.
No, I mean, you're right. I think the Nuggets, they are kind of proven what I saw forthcoming. At the beginning of the season, episode 1, I just was a little bit not gung-ho. This is not championship season or repeat season. They're at the base of this mountain and have to climb back up. They do have the best player in basketball, the best player in the world. And I think it's a consensus that everyone kind of knows that now. Him having 104 points and 2 over the course of back-to-back games. What was it, 30 assists and a ton of rebounds, 30 rebounds and like 16 assists or something like that in 2 games. It was Jokic. I don't even know what to say. He's one of one. And I saw he was like the first person. He joined another. Only Wilt and Elgin Baylor were on this list. It was like games of 45 plus 3 straight games of 45 or 40, 5 assists and 5 rebounds. And he's a basketball deity. And I will say it, he's the front office, specifically the GM. We all know his name, so I'm not going to say his name, but the GM needs to be fired or replaced. And I know who. We could get into it in a second, but we're toiling away championship window and a prime that has been like no other prime we've ever seen. So if the front office, specifically the GM, can go to sleep at night knowing that he's doing that, we're literally wasting prime years for nothing because we have an inept GM.
I was gonna say, Chris, I'm glad you went into that, but I also want to, because you did bring up a great point, and somehow Jokic just keeps marveling, right? I think we knew. I think on our first podcast we talked about Jokic in the Olympics, and there's a level that Jokic played in at the Olympics which was insane, where he almost took on 12 of the best basketball players in the world and beat them.
Yeah.
With 1 or 2 players on his team. And what you're seeing now is that Jokic is still kind of doing that. I'm not saying he doesn't have great players around him, but in a lot of ways, he is still saying, hey, I don't care if Jokic, I don't care if Jamal doesn't have it tonight. I don't care if AG's not on the court. I don't care if I'm playing with Dario Saric. I'm going to make something happen on this court. And what you're seeing is Jokic having another career year where he's having like 31 points per game, second in the NBA in scoring. He's leading the league in rebounds, and he's second in the NBA in assists, literally averaging a triple-double. He's had games where he hit his career high, and he follows it back up with 48 points. The game we played against the Hawks, he went all the way crazy. So I just think Jokic somehow, even in this stage where we have seen it all from Jokic, is still showing us that there is another level to his game. And before we get into all the details, I did just want to show the excitement and the craziness that is Jokic.
I think that you're right. Both of you are right about Joker. And I think we should talk about him a little more before we get into the what's not right. Because what is right is him. Okay. And um uh, you're right in that he got better from the summer. He knows how to play with everyone. And I think what he's doing now is he's looking around his team. He's seeing they don't have a 3-point shooter that's consistent. They have 3-point shooters, but they're not consistent. He sees he doesn't have a scorer that is consistent, at least in the starting position. And then we have Russ off the bench, and we'll get into that. But he's seeing where the deficits are, and he's making it up with his scoring. He takes pride in not having to score because he's not that kind of guy. He's the facilitator. He's to get the ball to you. He's a team guy. That's just who he is. But now he knows his team is not what it needs to be in the position to where they want to be at the end of the year, and he's just taking them on their shoulders.
And to that question, do you think it's good that we're doing it the way with Jokic? Because again, my question becomes, do we just tire Jokic out?
No.
And do we get the same thing we got last year?
No.
Where we're in a game 7 where Jokic just played 40 minutes for all those years. He puts another great performance on. Or do we find ways to say, hey, we may be a 6 or 7 seed this year and try to win from a 6-7 seed?
Here's my thing. We are not worthy. We're watching a basketball deity in his prime, and it's beautiful to watch. I'm proud to be a Denver Nuggets fan. At the time, I was a Nuggets fan before Jokic. I'll be a Nuggets fan after Jokic, but this is probably we're in the glory years, specifically in his prime. And I just wish that the front office recognize that like everyone else does. Sidebar on the front office really quickly, and I promise I'll be done with this point. It's a dead horse at this point. We all know it. Every Nuggets fan listening to this podcast or who's a fan of the Nuggets knows it. If I was Josh Kroenke, which I'm not, but if I was him, I would fire Calvin Booth and I would hire Bob Myers. Bob Myers, I know he's been working with ESPN. He's also working with the Washington Commanders of the NFL. So he's out there. Bob Myers, for context, was the GM who built the Warriors dynasty. I don't know exactly when he got there, but he got there pretty early on in Steph's tenure. I think he drafted Clay, drafted Draymond, secured Andre Iguodala, David Lee, and all those others who became that first team, landed KD. So I think if he wanted to get back to the NBA, we could be a perfect fit for him, because it's gonna be them doing things. And I have a point going back to your point, Kyle, it's gonna be them. When I say them is the front office doing things to enhance this season, because as we see, the Nuggets don't shoot well. They're very inconsistent. The bench is still the bench. We talked the whole first episode about like what we didn't want to see this season, or the phrase we didn't want to use at all this season was non-Jokic minutes. And they're at a historical deficit this season. Like the Nuggets,
I think we've said it more this year than any year, which is the funniest.
Which is sad. It's like the Nuggets, without him, they're a bottom 3 team in the NBA. With them, they're first across the board. So
we used to play Little League basketball, and the best player would go off the court, and then you could just tell the dip in action.
Yeah,
that's how the Nuggets look like when Jokic is on the court. It's like, well, here's 6 minutes of who cares or who knows.
I think they're poorly constructed. I just simply you could point some of this blame off the front office and at the coaching staff. And I don't think Deron Holmes would have been the savior of this issue. Sarge, Deron Holmes, I know I didn't watch him fully, but I know he's not Nikola Jokic. When they operate off that point center that motions and him having the ball and him making plays and him facilitating and him hitting the open person and you cutting and the ball's always moving, he's 3 steps ahead of the defense. When that individual's not on the court, they don't necessarily know how to play because they have no identity. They don't have like a run and shoot. They don't just become a shooting team. They don't play defense while he's off the court. They just don't have an identity. They don't have anything. And I thought Russell
And when you
Westbrook
get
would
to that
come.
point, Chris, do you think that's a feature or a bug? And the reason I say that is do you
It's a
think that the
bug.
Nuggets, I see this on Twitter. Yeah, it's a bug, right? I would say I did see this on Twitter, and as much as I hated the point, I was like, there is some validity to it. The Nuggets are so built around Jokic that when he goes off the court, they don't have an offense. I don't know if I want to say I don't know if that's the truth, but
It's the truth.
when you watch it, they're like they have no idea how to play basketball outside of it. And I think it's because the Nuggets are the first team ever constructed where you have a point center. Like the ball's not just running through the center. It's like the ball is in the center's hand. Like that's it. Like the everything moves through him. And when they're off the court, the backups, which we were, like you said, I think you were about to say it. We were hoping that would be Russ that would be able to handle it. But I just don't think Russ has enough consistent knockdown shooters and everything else that comes with how his game would play.
And Russ
Right.
isn't a
And
good
here's
shooter. I
the thing,
mean,
Adam.
everyone knows that. That's no breaking news here. But like when no one else around him is a good shooter, and we're trying to, when he gets open looks and he just clanks it, they're just the Nuggets are in a bad spot right now. And in short, I think the
But
only
that's
way to
is this
improve it
just
is
Michael
make some
Malone?
moves, and they're not going to make moves because we have an inept GM. So
Does Michael Malone have any blame to have here? I think so. And
I
I love
said
him.
I gave a little bit. Here's my thing.
I
If
mean,
you
I
were to
know
look
there's
at a
destructive.
pie.
We already got that. Can we stop talking about it? We get it. That's just done. Can we solve
I'm
this
just saying, if
problem?
you were to look at a pie,
That
they
can we
get
help?
90%. How you divvy up the remaining 10 is up to you.
No.
Mike Malone is not out of line of fire here by any means. No.
Yeah. What can he do? I mean, we've seen them Doug's play enough. We should be able to tell him exactly what he needs to do.
But I do agree with. I told you what he is. I would say that we have to figure out an offense that's not when Jokic is in the
There
game.
you go.
But the other bigger issue is that it is the Calvin Booth issue because he didn't construct an offense where you can do that. Like the bench doesn't allow for anything. Like Russ can be, for all we know, in the way there's a lot of X's and O's we just don't understand, obviously. But who's to say Russ isn't doing the offense that Mike Malone has installed, and yet dudes aren't making their shots, they're not cutting. Like there's a whole part of that.
You know why? Because they haven't played in the NFL long enough. They're
NBA.
not NBA. I'm sorry, NBA long enough. They're not vets, and don't have that kind of experience. And you don't know. You could go if you go to P. Watt. I'm just going to come down the line. You go to P. Watt. He's a defender. You go to Strother. He's new to the NBA, and he is not consistent in his shot getting. You go CB. We moved him to starter.
So why are they playing on a championship window team?
Because because we're going to get to this, and we're here now, so we might as well talk about it. Because the trade deadline has not opened yet.
Trade window, yeah.
Window, and we were saying, okay, if you look at some of our early takes, we were like, okay, we're going to wait till the All-Star break. We cannot. We got to day one when it opens. We need to have a plan who we're going to go get.
For context,
I'm
calling it the window. It's just the fact that December 15th is when players that were traded during the off season or signed during the off season or anything like that, they have to wait till December 15th to be eligible for trades and stuff. So
Okay.
But Jays,
Yes.
we did this all last year. The front office isn't going to make a move. They're not.
They are. No. I've heard
They're
more
not.
conversation about what. Okay. Well, if you don't think
It's lip service. Lip
Let's
service.
say this, Christoph. I know it's lip service to you. I think there's no choice but them to make a move because we're sitting at 7 in the West or 6 in the West. Like we're literally sitting in the playing spot. So if you think the Nuggets are perfectly constructed and you just need time to get there,
as Pat Mahomes once said,
fired today. No, I'm saying
as Pat Mahomes once said, "I'll see it when I believe it."
In spite of that, since you want to play GM here, who do you want on the team? Or who do you think pushes the Nuggets? Because the way I see it is, as bad as the Nuggets are playing, I still don't think there's that many good teams in the West outside of who I said from day one, and I've only proved it, that OKC is the best team in the West.
I think, and I'll say, over the last 5 years,
and they're good. They're just good. And the other thing,
that's what high draft.
I know, but they had SGA before those trades. They got SGA through that the draft picks.
You're saying what I'm
saying.
But
anyways, I guess the other part is we also know that the Mavs, as good as they are 3 dependent. So if they're not hitting the 3 ball, they're gonna lose series. They're kind of built like the Houston Rockets in a lot of ways. The
And
old school
Minnesota-
Rockets.
and Minnesota
And
got
Minnesota's
away.
took a step back
Yeah,
when
they
they got
did.
rid of Cat
Correct.
and they've added Julius Randle, who is a great basketball player. I just think that flow doesn't work as well. So my question becomes, the West is still wide open outside of OKC. How do we literally make up the gap against OKC through a player or an asset that you'd want on the Nuggets that would make that difference?
I'll throw a big name out that is kind of like a far fetch, and then the questions always get come back to who do you trade to get them, right?
Yeah.
So, but I'll just throw hypothesis names out there. One name, Jordan Clarkson. I think Jordan Clarkson is toiling away in Utah. I think he could be a good piece for you. And I would trade Strothard like 2 days ago. I'm done with the Strothard experiment. I truly am. I've seen enough. Najee's the easy one on the board. We've been calling Najee's head for years. But I'm saying Strothard could go as much as I love him. P. Watt can go. And then the big name who I don't think you could do it, but he's still on his rookie deal. So you're really just doing that as like a flyer, and I don't think it helps you. It helps you get back sort of your defensive identity and your grit and that, but it doesn't really help you solve your shooting. But Scotty Barnes from Toronto, he's been injured this season. Once more, he's on his rookie contract. He's not making big money at the moment. It could be a piece, to kind of fill that KCP hole.
I would want to have to trade him, and I have not heard.
We'd have to give our rib and our soul for him too.
That's what I said. I said it's a big name. It's not practical, and it doesn't really help the problem. But you see, they got rid of OG, and OG plays totally different than he did in Toronto there. And maybe you can unlock Scotty in some sort of way. But to solve your shooting problem, I don't know. Clarkson, I think, would be good. I think there's just some shooters out there. It's like it seems like every team you watch. Sorry, last point on League Pass, or when you watch a team like a random team play the Nuggets. It always seems like they got a shooter, just somebody who just makes buckets. That's what they come in to do. They like a Luke Kennard. Their job is just to shoot and make buckets. The Nuggets don't really have that. And even when we had it a few years ago with Bryn Forbes, dude was clanking. So, I would like one of those dudes, preferably Serbian, who's played on the team with him. Bogdan, that's not happening, but that would be tight.
They already picked him up. He's not going to be back out there for a trade. He just went to his new team.
I'm talking about the one from Atlanta.
Yeah,
that one.
That'd be great. They might make a trade because they're at that point where they're 50-50 on what they want.
No, Atlanta's making moves. We could talk about them in not Nuggets, but they're not bad. They laid an egg against us last week, but they're not bad team.
Okay, so here's my untouchables. I know we don't have a whole lot to give up in this veteran manner. Of course, Joker, untouchable to me. This is I don't care what the world's saying. This is just mine. AG, Jamal Murray, and MPJ.
I would argue that Jamal Murray has opened himself up to not being untouchable for the Nuggets anymore.
And why is that?
I love Jamal Murray, and quite frankly, I have a theory for why there's such a massive hate for Jamal Murray.
And what is that?
I believe that Lakers fans who saw Jamal Murray cook them saw once Jamal started going down, I think Lakers media is national media. And I think there is a hate from Lakers media that spewed into all of Nuggets media that has this belief that Jamal Murray has somehow went from the guy that didn't just hit the game winner against the Lakers last series and win the series for us. Like Jamal won the only series that we had last year.
Yeah.
He hit 2 game winners.
He had 2 game winners.
And he always comes to play at the time we need him to come, which is the playoffs.
Yeah, and there's this
weird Game 7. Game 7, he had 35 points. And Jokic had 34 points.
Now, all I'm saying is this: there's this weird hate for Jamal Murray that has spewed into Nuggets media, and I'm not saying Jamal Murray should be against hate from the Nuggets fans because he has struggled. He hasn't always talked to the media. He hasn't always been the guy that matters in the regular season or this. Like Jamal has his flaws. I'm not saying that he should be above criticism or anything. I think the hate and the spewing that comes to Jamal Murray is literally been indoctrinated through national media, through
Well,
Lakers
I
media.
didn't want to hear his name
And
in the
and
trade.
now
That's
us
all I'm
Nuggets
saying.
fans have now seen Jamal play bad, and now we're saying, oh, Jamal's not good no more. He's damaged goods. His knees messing up with him. He didn't play well in Team Canada, and Jamal hasn't helped himself. I will also say that Jamal has not helped himself.
Until he does bad in the playoffs, then we can talk about trading him. We cannot be talking about trading him now because he is not the problem. He is not in my mind.
I'll give you that, Jays. I'll give you that point. To salvage the season, you can nip and tuck, figure out try to make that bench better, who could come off that bench, go get some scoring. But I think what happened with the team, we had a championship team and that window has shut. I think so. I just let me say my point. I think when we made that AG trade and we had the best team in basketball for those 5 games, and then Jamal got injured, and he worked his way back, and we said, here's the championship season. They go out and execute and get a championship, right? That off season, that's when you should have pushed it again and said, we're still the best team in basketball. We're gonna go get back to back. Let's do that. But once more, front office screwed the pooch. Then they let someone walk next season. Didn't get the job done because they had no bench. Then they don't do anything of substance this offseason. You go out there and get a big name like Westbrook, and it kind of mutes the heightened frustration that was coming from all around, including Nuggets fans, including this pod. And we tempered it because we're like, oh, we'll see how it is. And now we see it's 500 and very wish-washy. So I think you can kind of try to salvage it this season with some of these nip and tuck trades, but I think at the end of the day, you might have to just strip it down and start it up.
Strip it down now, but who's untouchable in a trade that you would do next week? That's all I'm talking about.
Oh, those four you said.
Yeah.
Those 4 you said. However, I'm open to hearing trades if they make sense for everybody except Jokic and Aaron Gordon. Probably. I don't want to break up any of the 4. I really don't. But that's like there is probably a world where you can make me a trade for Jamal where I might go, maybe. There's probably a world where you can give me a trade where Michael Porter comes around. You're like, I could do it potentially. But the problem with trading Michael Porter is that he's one of the best shooters in the NBA. So it's like if we already have a 3 problem, because I seen someone floating around a Jimmy Butler. I'm like, the last thing I love Jimmy Butler dearly. I would love him on the Nuggets in a heartbeat. If they wanted to somehow take Christian Brown or something, then we'll figure that out. However, I just can't possibly give up Jamal Murray or MPJ and all those. Well, maybe that's what I'm saying. That could be interesting, but definitely not MPJ because we'd still have our same problem when it comes to shooting. Actually, we'd be worse off with the Jimmy Butler.
No, I don't. I said if the big moves like that, moving like the core, the core 4, one of the core 4, that has to be done in the off season, preferably with a smarter GM than we currently have.
Thank you.
I'm saying for this season,
no, I'm not touching them.
You do not touch that. Everybody else is up for grabs. And if that's the case, I would say lock it. You're starting 5. Keep CB off the limit because CB's been a lone bright spot.
He's been playing well.
Okay, so I that's where I want to get to. Okay, because I was gonna just throw out there. If you're gonna go to next season, that's too far away. We're in this one. I agree with the CB, but I'm with K Dot on this one. If they give me a deal that has to have CB in it, and it's somebody like Bogdan or somebody that I know is going to come in and start throwing up some threes and taking care of the bench, he's gone too, to me.
Yeah. I think if we do you just got to realize that, and this is why we say fire Calvin Booth, is that you could be playing with fire with certain things. The Nuggets defensively are not great. So getting rid of CB doesn't necessarily make you a better team either. But you have to make a trade where it's like, okay, somehow we got Jimmy Butler. He at least is an upgrade to where you're at. If not, we just need to upgrade our bench and just hope for the best.
Yeah.
So whether that's getting rid of Zeke, whether that's getting rid of somebody else, like maybe just don't touch the starting five, but somehow develop that bench where we have a couple shooters. Like, them shooters, for all I care, we can get Duncan Robinson if he's available. Like Duncan Robinson would be huge for us.
Yeah.
It's an African name, and he's a shooter though. Okai Agjabaji from Toronto. He could shoot his butt off.
That's what we need. If you told me I'm giving up Strother, Najee, and P.Y., I know our defense with P.Y. because he's a spotter and he's a hit. I know that. But if you could get somebody who can give me 3 points when Joker gets some rest off the bench and I have to lose my development squad because that's what Calvin Booth was trying to do, look to the future. Well, if you can't get to the future if you can't get through current. I mean, how you gonna get? You got to get through current to get to the future.
We need somebody on the bench that's gonna be a 3-and-D guy.
Yeah.
Period. That's it. You know what I'm saying? We need 2 3-point shooters on that bench.
Well, if we get, let me think about it this way: you're gonna have Russ. Russ is
Russ
not
is
going
gonna-
anywhere. Russ is gonna
cut.
get the ball to you.
Yeah, Russ is gonna be cut.
And he could cut himself. He can go to the basket. Or he could dump it. If he always could dump it to somebody who's gonna hit, I don't know, 30-40% of their shots, because we're not there. I know our percentage on that bench is not a 40% 3-point shooting team. If we can do that, that would make all the difference right there. Joker can stay on the bench longer, okay? And then we'd win because we're not losing games by a ton.
And it sounds like, Michael Malone always switches things up, but he said right now the center he's enjoyed most playing after Jokic has been DeAndre Jordan.
Oh, did he?
Because he provides good defensive rebounding and rim protection.
Yeah.
So we don't necessarily need to go get a center for back
I
of
wouldn't
Jokic.
say that. I wouldn't say that. I'm only saying when he's on the court, not to back his position up. I'm just saying to get points. We don't, when you go down and your starting five has you up even 5 points, and you come back and you're down -10.
Players I'd want from back in the day, I'm saying like a player we'd ideally want is like a JJ Redick. You know
Or
what I mean?
Seth Curry.
Seth Curry.
Yeah, Seth.
Somebody that's gonna.
I think to your point, Kyle, about who are some players so you can nip and tuck and go construct a second unit. Once more, all this is hypothetical because it's not happening. But
something's gonna happen.
Go look at teams in the East who are already nosediving. Some teams in the West, like Utah, the Pelicans, maybe, who are kind of just like their season's closer to the end than the beginning, and you can facilitate them, give them a Najee, give them a P. Watt.
Can we get Keegan?
No, you're not getting Keegan, but
they're not doing nothing.
But that's who I would start to target. Those teams that have assets that aren't really going anywhere, who could fit a style. What you have to really think through the type of bench you want. You got to think through, and this is back to your point, Jays, about at Coach Malone. What type of squad do you want on the court during non-Jokic minutes? And I don't think the front office or the coaching staff is given that piece of how to construct the team much thought. Like, I think they think about who fits best with Jokic, right? And I think that's what you got to do because you're thinking playoffs. When they're playing, when you have a 7-man rotation and you're playing 40 minutes. But in order to get there, you have to have a depth. You have to have depth of roster. And I think how you get the depth of roster, just a hypothesis from this one Nuggets fan, is that you construct your bench to be a good team when he's not on the court and have its own identity when he's not on the court. Say what you must, that championship team their bench had an identity because you had Jeff Green coming off that bench. You had Bruce Brown, early in the season, you had Bones Highland. You had a squad that was very tough in their own right. And this season you don't have it, but once more, it's all hypothetical because it ain't happening.
Well, Nuggets will make a trade. We don't know what the trade's going to be. However, all we can hope is that, because again, the Nuggets are still a great team, even though they're not playing well right now. I think this team is still gonna be top 4 in the West. Maybe not seed wise, but just when it comes playoff time, like you don't want to play a Jokic team and a Jamal team
You sure
and a
don't.
Michael Porter team and an Aaron Gordon team
Nope.
in a 7-game
Yeah,
series
no, you do not.
where they can figure you
If
out.
they're rested,
I
do
say
not.
you don't want to play those 4 or 5 people. However, we got to get rid of this 7-man roster and figure out how we can expand it to 10.
You think it's a 7? Because
The reason why I say 7 is because
you put
you have
P1 in
Russ,
there?
you have Russ, and then you got one of the others. We don't know who the other is on any
Okay.
given day, but it's like sometimes P-Watt does play really good.
It's
Sometimes
DeAndre,
I guess now you can say, or I was gonna say Strother will play well.
No.
Yeah, he has. He's played well at moments. But I'm just saying, that's why I said 7 at best, but it's really 6-man roster. So that's our issue.
I'll say one more thing before we go to the next thing. I know y'all said we got to decide how we're going to want to play, but I also we got to decide how we're going to develop our future and if it matters. Because you've tried to do that now for how many years? 7? It's 5. I mean, pick a number. It's more than 2 or 3. It was because we were trying to do that same thing with Najee in the year we won the championship, and we just had strong bets in front of him. But we've been trying to draft in the 20s or something, or lower than that, and get somebody who's going to be like a top 5, top 6. You know,
I'd say
that's our problem. That has been the problem.
Take it from the Bulls, like. You have to, and I'm talking about Chicago with Michael Jordan and all that. You got to optimize for winning.
Yeah.
When you're in this window, you can't be like, oh, we also got to develop talent.
No.
You're not in a developing talent.
We don't even have to go back to the 90s.
There you go. That's the conversation.
I was going to say,
championships are not the same thing. You can't just try to bring Julian Strawther along on a team that needs to win today.
Yeah.
That's why when we let go of the guy I forget he's playing for Memphis Memphis right now. He's playing very well. He's a center. He's playing really well.
Oh, there's Nuggets all over.
There's Nuggets across the NBA.
I mean, it is so many.
So what I'm saying is that you have to optimize for winning. So it doesn't matter like, oh, blah, blah, blah. We need that 30-year-old. We need that 30-year-old vet. Like, we need the PJ Tuckers on our team. We need those random guys. You know their name because they've been in the NBA for years, and all they want to do is win. We need to construct their team like how Dallas did with older players like Jokic.
We had Uncle Jeff, we had DeAndre, and we had Bruce Brown, who never won, and they wanted to win. That was the motivation every game, every game.
And
now
we got Bruce Brown.
We got
I haven't seen his name.
The championship, but we need to get somebody else with Russ like that. We need to get
because we can get Russ and Bruce Brown. I'd love that. That'd be a lot better.
We would still need to get that KCP person. No, but I think to your point, Kyle, you don't even have to go back 30 years. I think the prime example of who's doing it now is Boston. Boston, they still have Peyton Pritchard and they have some youth on their team who's just playing above their weight class, but they also go out and get a Porzingis. They go out and get a Drew Holiday because they're optimizing to get a championship. And then when they got a championship, they kept their team intact to go back and do it again because G
League. Pritchard was in the G League developing. I'd be happy if because Julian. My fault to cut you off. I'd be okay with Julian Strawther playing in it's too late now. But if he was playing in the G League for the last 2 years and then joined us, this year or last year, I'd be down with that.
No, the sad thing is this, and I never thought I would utter this sentence.
Like we got Jalen Pickett holding down a roster spot right now.
Mm-hmm.
We got
which he shouldn't.
Cankar.
He shouldn't.
I love Cankar dearly.
He has to help for a couple years.
Cankar is holding down a roster spot. We already talked about Zeke, whatever. Like Zeke is holding down a roster spot, but we got dudes that are really Hunter Tyson. I love Hunter Tyson.
Yeah. And I think what you just said an entire. I can't believe I'm saying this out loud, but like Tim Conley was so much better at this. I got mad. I didn't like Tim Conley because this dude would trade in division. He would trade talent in division.
He would trade with Portland all
he would, but here's a big word I just said in there. He would trade. Like he made moves. He did stuff. He made forward progression. You have to. And if you're gonna bank on your draft to what you're saying, Kyle, to develop and go after championships simultaneously, whatever. To have that thought process, very doesn't work.
You don't have to think about it. It does not work.
I didn't want to say anything other than that. I'm trying to lay off of this dude. But like
No,
that's what you're doing. But here's my thing, Jace. Here's my thing, Jace. You swing and you miss every year. Every year. You went 0 for 3, Strawthard, Hunter, and Pickett. I could have told you Pickett was garbage initially. I was pumped. So pumped for Hunter Tyson because I thought we had the dude who just plays defense and shoots threes. But no, that's not the case. And Strawther's just not panning out the way we wanted or hoped. And then the next year, the dude tore his Achilles, so you can't really hold that against him. But the dude also tore his Achilles, so it was a flop. It's a flop. So so it sucks when you bank you win a championship, right? Funny enough, you win a championship because you went out there and made moves. You made a free agency pickup and you made a big trade, and it got you a championship. That's crazy, right? And then you had a good draft because you got CB, right? But you weren't banking on CB. The next year, you were banking on Strawthard. This year, you were banking on Holmes. That is not a good move or not a great strategy when you're trying to go after championships. Unless you're not going after championship, and the last people to learn about that is the fans.
No, I said the fear is that the broken clock, right? Because Calvin Booth, in a lot of ways, made 2 good moves that won us a championship. Whether you like it or not, he made 2 good moves. Mind you, you can say Mike Malone helped with the Bruce Brown because Mike Malone was like, get this guy for me, please.
And KCP.
But the KCP was a good trade.
Yeah.
But from that, it's just like, dude, you haven't made any good trades. And my fear is that we don't get rid of him because of this attachment to this championship that he got.
No.
When he needs to go as soon as possible.
No.
Like yesterday, he should have been fired. The day before that, he should have been fired. Like you got to remember how agonizing even the offseason was, where he didn't make any moves for months in the offseason. Like you didn't go get us Lonnie Walker, you know what I mean, who's now balling out in Europe. You know what I'm saying? You didn't go get anybody during the offseason because of arbitrary things like, oh, well, we're in this bird year, we're in this, and I get that. But every other time, teams have made sacrifices to win, and I just don't think Calvin Booth has made those sacrifices because he's too attached to developing talent. And I think most Nuggets fans feel that same thing. So let's go to not Nuggets. Once again, the Nuggets are not going to be in the NBA Cup, but the NBA Cup is still here. Year 2, do you enjoy the NBA Cup more? And also, there was 2 games from the West. No, there's only 1 game last night from the West. The other one was in New York. But what's your thoughts on this NBA Cup? Are you enjoying it? What games have you liked the most? We're finally in the final 8. Well, now we're in the final 4. But what have you enjoyed from the NBA Cup or not enjoyed?
I still think it's a tight concept. That's just your boy. I think it makes December, early December and November gives it an identity, right? Instead of just playing games on Tuesdays and Fridays, it actually gives it something meaningful. You know what I mean? The one thing my only one critique of it is the one thing I hope they did it, but they're going back to Vegas again this year. I hope next year they go to Vancouver or Seattle or Paris. I would say open it up to have those semifinal games, like the Final Four and championship game, somewhere else. You can expand the game. You could test out new cities. You can get back feature old cities in the case of Vancouver and Seattle. That would be my hope. And maybe they don't have the infrastructure or whatever it is, or it's all based in gambling. So you want it to be in the home of, you want it to be in Sin City. I don't know. That would be my one critique. That would be my one thing. I'd be like,
they lost
bring to the league
last
office.
night didn't help because they lost the Warriors and they lost the Knicks because the Hawks and Rockets won. So,
I mean, but those teams are good. The Hawks play very well. I'm telling you, they have that rookie. My goodness, I had his name written down. No, I will pull it up. But like they have their team is no, yeah, Dyson Daniels. Dyson Daniels is a stud. Stud.
Well, I think if you asking, do we like it? I think it's entertaining enough that it keeps your mind focused on the NBA, at least in those nights that is now coming down to the final, four, final two, and whatever. And so, and that gets you to Christmas because all they want to do is get you to January. They just want to get you to Christmas in January, and they're there. So that does help. Um, the Nuggets didn't make it last time either, but that we still got to did well at the end, and we got where we wanted to get into the playoffs. So hopefully the same thing happens this year. We didn't make it in, but hopefully we correct some stuff, get ourselves together, and get to the playoffs in a spot that we don't have to be number 1, 2, or 3. We just have to be 4, get home court in my mind.
My critiques are still the same. The courts are incredibly ugly, and we'll talk about it in a little later, but the ratings haven't been. It's not like it's made the NBA more watchable. So that's just me. My two things.
Quick correction: Jalen Johnson from the Hawks. That's who. Dyson's having a good season too, but Jalen Johnson's who I'm thinking about. That dude is nice.
And then here's another one that had me cracking up. So Golden State lost obviously last night. And I don't know why, but Steve Kerr's starting to get a little annoying, bro. He always is complaining, bro.
So what happened that he thinks?
Yeah, that
there's
tech.
a foul on the floor. Yeah, when the Nuggets beat him, it was a problem with some timeout.
It was a timeout.
He thought that CB.
We were out of timeouts, and he thought
CB called it. And last night, this dude,
he did.
Did CB call it? He kind of like he kind of
he called it. He made the motion. It was a mistake, but he got away with it.
Timeouts all the time.
They do.
So like to say like there's been many a times where coaches have had to run up the field to get a timeout.
Yeah, just be in their face. Yes.
So whatever. And then last night Kerr was like, "We're supposed to be playing in Vegas right now, and I just can't believe the refs missed that call. I can't believe it." I'm like, dude, why are you complaining every single time, man? Like there is literally 60 minutes of basketball. You know what I'm saying? And you get mad over this right here. I don't know. That's just
what did Harvey Dent say?
He's always complaining about something against the Nuggets, and I just see it
sometimes now. You live long enough to see yourself become the villain. Steve Kerr's a made man, and he's, if you're turning on him, others are turning on him. He's lived long enough to watch himself become the villain. I have no qualms about him. I think every coach, if we're gonna like throw stones in a glass house, our coach calls our team soft every single time they have a bad game. You know what I mean? And he's a championship coach, and I still don't think he's good at timeouts either. So
yeah, we call
better.
If you want to throw stones in the glass house that we live in, let's throw stones. But Steve Kerr, yes.
We do call that out. So I'm just calling out Steve. Mm-hmm. I'm calling out Steve Kerr's ism.
Yeah.
He's whiny. He's whiny.
Like, bro, you could be complaining about stuff that's like, bro, play better, bro. You know what I'm saying? It's one of those, like, play better. But anyways, I'd say the
Hawks, Bucks.
No, I was gonna say last thing on it. I think the Rockets, they're sitting at second in the West. They're pretty good.
Surprisingly, yeah.
They were good last year. They were just young, and they're a year better. I don't think the Nuggets should be scared of them, personally. But they are pretty good.
Unless they get Jimmy Butler.
They're a good basketball team.
If they get Jimmy Butler, that'd be tough because that's the Jimmy Butler. What do you say? Golden State, Dallas, or Houston are the 3 teams that he wants to be traded to.
They definitely shouldn't trade for Jimmy Butler because they're going to have to give up picks. And they're already they're building it correctly. Jimmy Butler, if they give up their picks, then Jimmy Butler is going to get free agency next year. So you might be giving up a lot of picks of your team that's building for Jimmy Butler, who could still walk on you. I would wait and see what happens with Jimmy Butler this year, see if he tested the free agency, and if he still wants to come to Houston afterwards, I would get him. I just think sometimes teams will mess up their farm. I don't think you need to. Like the Hawks are in good position to chill. Like just get better. They have picks, they have talent. They just chill.
The Rockets.
So let me ask you a question about this. The Rockets. The
Hawks are good too.
Yeah, let me ask you. So in the West, we're gonna in the finals. We got OKC and Houston. That's 1 and 2. But over in the other side, Boston's number 2 because Cleveland's first, and Atlanta's 7. So,
I feel like
Boston got
the
that.
Hawks are
going to be in the finals.
The Hawks are playing the pacer role this year, whereas like teams doubt them, but they were. It was only in 2021 when they went to the Final Four. You know what I'm saying? Final Four,
we'll see.
The Eastern Conference Finals.
So
they're not a bad team.
So your thought is it's a possibility. We should be saying it's a possibility they're going to beat Boston. Okay.
No. I say
no. It said that.
let's see if they can get out of the Boston window because I think they
I'm
have.
talking about for this mid the Saturday
Oh no,
Sunday
they're playing
stuff.
the Bucks.
I'm sorry.
But
Yeah.
I'm saying in general,
I'm
if the
sorry.
playoffs end of the day, I get what you're saying they'd play Boston.
Yeah.
I would say if they can avoid Boston, even if they play the Cavs, I wouldn't count them out 1,000%.
Yeah.
Can we sidebar real fast? Who right now are would you say the best 5 teams in the NBA?
OKC, OKC,
No,
Boston,
don't do that.
Boston,
Don't do that.
OKC.
Boston and OKC. Okay, I
Nuggets.
give you that.
No, the last one was Nuggets, obviously. Homer. But no, if I'm being honest, I'd say Boston, OKC
Or best.
are the best.
I don't know about the other three because if you say New York or
I
something,
feel like everybody
might as
and
well
Cavs.
say
I would
Denver.
say Cavs are third
Yeah,
best.
they always are up there. Cavs are always up
Cavs
there.
are the
They're
third
not.
best team.
Two, they're not.
This is the first time they're like actually here though.
Yeah, but
After that, it does become tough because you could. My fandom is gonna say Nuggets gotta still be. I think that if the Nuggets played a 7-game series, I'm still not counting them out against anybody except OKC at this point. Who else would, if the Nuggets played a 7-game series, who else would you count them out in the West against? Dallas?
Count them out? I wouldn't count them out against anyone.
Okay.
Yeah, I wouldn't even count them out against
who would beat them?
No, I'm just saying
who would
team
beat
that's
them? Minnesota, Golden State, Dallas, OKC.
You think Golden State would beat us?
Yeah.
So then you'd put Golden State in the top 5. I don't know.
You mean as constructed today?
I'm talking about how they're
playing. I'm saying it's constructed today. But as they're constructed today, they will be constructed in May. So
okay, all right, yeah, okay.
All right.
Yeah.
Last thing on the not Nuggets. What about Trae Young? Did you like the dice roll on the Knicks thing? I think he's the good villain. I don't know. He's like the villain that the Knicks didn't know they needed, but it's just a funny rivalry.
I think it happens in NBA. There's always, Larry Bird and the 76ers, you know what I mean? It's always there's going to be there's players that teams and fan bases don't like. Obviously, the Knicks have done Knicks fans have done despicable things to Trae Young just in the name of him just having good games against their team, but he obviously gets up to play the Knicks and the Knicks fans get up to boo him. So I think both parties get to be mutually beneficial.
I just love that Trae Young has made this a rivalry. Like he makes us want to watch Knicks versus Hawks because you never know what's gonna happen. Whether it's him bowing in the middle of the stands or just rolling dice, like this dude, he just made this a funny rivalry to me.
Yeah, it is. It is. So
Yeah.
what about anything else going on other than the Nuggets for us?
I mean, I'm saying I was saying. Let me answer my own question. OKC. Let me back up. Boston is the best team in basketball.
Yes.
OKC is the number 2. I'm iffy. The Cavs, as they sit there number 1 in the East, they got off to a hot start. Obviously, I don't know if they're better than Dallas, and I don't think they're better than the Knicks. I think. Cleveland. That one is another.
No. Oh, yeah.
I'll believe it when I see it type energy.
They gotta prove it. Yeah, they gotta prove it.
So I would say I like the Knicks better than them. I would say Dallas, and then I would throw the Cavs.
You asked me who's the best right now.
I'm high on the Knicks. I am honestly high on the Knicks, and I like how they're constructed, and I think they're just kind of chugging along. And when they mesh, they're going to be very tough out. I think they're going to be very tough out for Boston. I could see that being 7.
You got anything to say about the Suns?
Get Jimmy Butler.
Yeah.
And KD got to get help.
The thing to me about the Suns, I put them in the same bucket as Cleveland. They play well till they don't, okay? And then they got to make it all the way to the end of a season. And so the teams that have proven they can make it to the end of a season are the ones we're talking about. Boston, OKC, Nuggets, even if we're going to make it to the end of the season. I know you don't think we're going to do anything to fix it, but we're going to make it to the end of the season because we got Joker. Yeah. We have Joker.
Nuggets are going to make it to the second round regardless.
Here's the thing. But the Nuggets, this is a Nuggets podcast, so I'll just keep it funky. And here's some of my fandom. If the Nuggets are hanging around 7-6-5, 4-3-2 do not want to play them.
No, they
That's
don't.
not a first round draw you want. Like you don't want the
That's the
team that has
Lakers.
the best player in the world
The Lakers
and
playing.
who just won a championship in the last 2 years. That's not a
Yeah.
first round matchup if you're Houston and this 2 seed and you're happy to get the 2 seed, or you're Memphis. Like you don't want the Nuggets.
No,
You don't want the
you do
Nuggets.
not. Mm-mm.
Nope, you
That's
really
a
don't.
that's just a
All right,
tough that's a tough spot.
let's go to the 2 minutes remaining.
2 minutes remaining.
2 minutes remaining.
So I kind of alluded to it a little bit, but I guess the NBA ratings have been down a little bit this year, more than other years. And just to put it in perspective, the NBA ratings are down 48% since 2012. Obviously, that was the years when LeBron was young, Curry was young. Those are the main guard. They're down 28% this year alone on ESPN. Every other sports league is setting records because, obviously they have Caitlin Clark in the WNBA. NFL just like one of the cash cows that just keeps growing.
It keeps giving.
MLS just got messy.
Yeah.
So
and don't forget NCAA football has CU.
It has CU. It also just has the college football playoff that's unique.
Yeah.
I don't know if college basketball is getting any ratings outside of Cooper Flag. But these are just some things to look at. My question becomes, where do you think the issue is? Because obviously it's not a revenue thing. NBA still brings in revenue when it comes to
because they put butts in seats, yes.
But my question becomes, what do you think the issue is?
I think you have an answer. You go for it.
Christoph, you have anything?
Yeah, I just think it's November. It was October. It's December. Football is warming up. You kind of alluded to everything you said. Like you're in the playoff hunt. Here here in Denver, the Broncos are in it. Like, do I care more about the Broncos finally being in it and having a quarterback, or the Nuggets struggling in November? I care more about the Broncos. And if you look at that across the board, like if they're still down in May, I just think there's an abundance of other things. Think about sports gambling. Like people, they rather watch a MAC football game on a Tuesday, Thursday night than an NBA game at the moment. But when the NBA is the only show in town, guess what? People are gonna start watching. That's what's gonna happen.
You made a good point because October, remember, was 5 different major leagues playing. You had the baseball, you had hockey, you had the NBA starting up.
And Jays, and when in October you had the Yankees versus the Dodgers in the World Series with Ohtani versus Judge. Like you had names and star power. People wanted to tune in for that. So I continue with your points, but it's below my line.
All the major sports.
No, I agree with you, but the people are always gonna make a fuss of it, so I was just asking. I think the number one answer is kind of what you're saying, is that obviously there's just great sports going on right now.
Right.
You got the Chiefs, obviously they've only lost one game this year, playing great football, going for a third championship. You have, like you said, the Broncos are playing with the Bo Nix.
Yeah.
So you have, and then you got Jamar Chase messing up the whole NFL.
Yeah.
So you have all these things going on, and the NFL season is somewhat very exciting this year too. So there's this push to watch it. I would say outside of that, because that's going to always be a theme, like that doesn't change. I think the other thing outside of it is that the NBA has finally got to a point where they have to address their TV issue.
Yeah.
And when I say that, is it's incredibly hard to watch the Nuggets. I've heard other fan bases talk about how incredibly hard it is to watch their teams. It's also hard obviously, if you get NBA package, that's one thing. But now as people move away from cable and all that, the NBA package is harder to watch. I just think they're going to have to make themselves more available to the where the consumer's at today in order for them to get more people to watch. I think that's really it. But NBA is king when it comes to the summer, so call
it what you must. They had the best off season. Everyone's going to pay attention. And if their numbers are still down in March, in April, May, now you have an issue. But until then, you let it ride. Like even the Oscars, if you put the Oscars up against the game that's going on this weekend, NFL, it's the Buffalo versus Detroit, which 10 years ago you say Buffalo versus Detroit, I would never watch that. But now that's a marquee matchup. You can't miss it. So if you put the Oscars on the same night as that, like you'd have a lot of people going back and forth between that. So I don't think it's I wouldn't feel slighted if I was NBA. I think what you're saying is has the most validity too, is that they need to figure out how to make it more tangible for their audience, meet them where they are, and figure out how, even if it's maybe cut a deal with Netflix, cut a deal with Hulu,
Stop
start
blocking out
stream
my games, man. Because I feel
start
like even with
start
the
streaming games,
yeah.
start streaming marquee games like that. Like obviously Netflix is getting into more live sports. Um, maybe that's an option you can start to look at. Like I said, even utilize this NBA Cup to kind of rejuvenize some dormant fans and some dormant markets. I think there's definitely things and solutions out there. It's just, you know, sometimes you get fat cat syndrome, you know what I mean? And you've been doing something for so long and it's been working for so long that when there's a shift in the market, you're kind of late to respond because you're like, well, we've been doing this for da 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 years, XYZ, and things change.
And I would say like because even this year I've noticed more the Broncos will be on TV, but you can still watch other things. Like you can watch another football game, you know, or you'll be able to watch Red Zone. In the NBA, the Nuggets will be on TV, and I just can't watch them. You know what I'm saying? I have to live, and that's the other thing. It's like you don't realize how many basketball fans are streaming off no platform. I bet if you go look at some of the I won't name any websites. I mean, because I don't you know how that go. But if you go look at some of these websites, I bet you'll be like, dang, I did not realize this many people watch the NBA. That are just not being accounted for because of all these random
Right.
websites.
And just like with anything else, you have to do you can't do traditional anything anymore in the world because everything is now, you know, we got chat GPT, we got any kind of AI, we got EV, we got all kinds of stuff that's new and evolving, and so is broadcast network, you know, um, ratings. It's hard to get it right, and so yeah, if you miss streaming, you're gonna miss a whole lot of people. So we need to figure out a whole nother way to appreciate how many people are watching the NBA. I guess.
And you're not just going against other sports leagues. You're going against everything.
Yeah.
You're going against YouTube. You're going against
Yeah.
anything people would otherwise want to get entertained
Sure.
by.
Right.
You're going against them. But I think the NBA, we know who the NBA is when it going gets tough and who
Yeah.
people enjoy. So
Sure.
And
just
to
like
your
Charlie Wright.
before we close, I gotta say it, because it's the time. There's a shift in the market. Who's gonna leave? LeBron is 40 this later on this month. Steph is getting up there in age. KD's leaving. Who's the new draw? That's a bigger question that the NBA needs to answer. And I don't think you can force it. You can't force someone to be the
Well, they
draw.
were trying to force Anthony Edwards.
And they're trying to force Wemby, but I've not seen Wemby that much
No,
either.
they've been trying to force Wemby. They've been trying to force Anthony. They've been testing out people. I'll say it like that.
Mm-hmm.
We
I don't
haven't
know,
been.
and I think the best players it's actually funny because the best players don't have the personality for it. Because Jokic is not really going to be stepping the limelight like that. Tatum might dip his toe in, but his demeanor and
To
he's
that
he's
point,
a hooper. And then SGA, he dresses, he likes, he's into his fashion, but he doesn't have big thoughts on life and culture, and he doesn't shapeshift. He's not a leading man in those commercials like Michael Jordan or whatever it is. So these are your best players, and they're not necessarily draws or captivating or
NBA
have a
had this
style
crazy
play like
handoff.
Steph where it's like you have to watch.
Yeah, NBA had that crazy handoff. You literally went from Dr. J to MJ. I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
No,
I mean, not to MJ. You
Matt
went
to
to Dr.
Magic
J
and
to Magic and Bird to
mhm.
MJ to Kobe to LeBron. Like that has been your pipeline, and it's just been spectacular. You finally realize that like that's not always how things work. You know what I mean? Like, some leagues really like go ask soccer right now, Major League and MLS. Like they're thankful they got Messi. You know what I'm saying? They haven't had somebody that just draws people to face, or even WNBA. It's like Caitlin Clark came into this league. That's changing everything. So it's like it
And
just
maybe
doesn't
they
happen.
get it with Cooper Flag.
I mean, they might get it with Cooper Flag. That's a possibility. But Cooper Flag would have to literally be that guy for real, and he has to be transcendent. And based on watching him in college basketball, he's not bad. He's actually really good
But
basketball.
you guys are making a point about this transition. I get it, but along that transition, there was always rivals. It was Magic and Bird. It was LeBron and D Wade and Carmelo. Okay, maybe Kobe didn't have the rival, but he bridged the gap between the old, at the time Magic
Shaq.
and them, and
Kobe has Shaq.
and Shaq,
Shaq.
yeah,
Oh, yeah,
Kobe,
the whole
Shaq,
beef.
yeah, there you go. So there's no beef right here now. Everybody kind of likes everybody. They want their sneakers at the end. They taking off their jerseys and stuff. So
And there's no dynasty, and I think dynasties matter too.
Yeah.
Because if you go look, they said the last big year was, I mean, they said it's been down since 2012. But if you look at that, there's dynasties there. That was like, yeah, Golden State dynasty was just starting. You had LeBron and his legacy and his dynasty too. Dynasties really do bring people to sports. You've seen it with the Patriots. Like, people just watch football because they wanted to see Tom Brady lose.
Yeah.
We don't have somebody where we're like, this is the best player and we want to see them lose. The Nuggets could have been them. We just didn't do it. Like, people want to see Jokic lose the MVP, but imagine if Jokic was won back-to-back championships.
Yeah.
The whole league would be like, yo, we need to take this guy out. And the ratings would go up because now you have a villain. The NBA doesn't have a villain right now.
Right.
It has nothing to hate.
Right.
Like, you just see great basketball, which is part of it.
We talk about it in politics. I'm not gonna get into politics, but a
So.
party needs to be more polarizing. That's it. Polarizing puts butts in seats. It makes people turn on televisions. And to your point, they're not polarizing. There's nothing really polarizing. There's no dynasty, there's no rivals, and there's no face of the league that people like. For whatever reason, people don't like LeBron. You know, whatever it is, they have their points. Steph Curry, people don't like Steph Curry.
They will miss him. Yes.
I think Anthony Edwards would be the villain to hate, but that means
He
you'd
needs
have to
to
beat
ride-
Jokic.
yeah.
And that ain't you ain't
But
gonna do it.
the other thing about Anthony Edwards doesn't have like a primary adversary. I was thinking
No.
about that when you mentioned him. He wants to smoke from everybody. You can't have everybody having smoke. Like Trae Young, the Knicks, you know?
Well, it would have worked out if it was
Ja Morant.
It was John Morant, but then he
But
they
they all
blew
can't.
himself up.
The problem is that none of them
blew
can
himself
also reach the summit of success. You know what I mean? The problem is that you guys they want to crown you, but you have to win.
You got to win.
And Jokic and Tatum are both chill, like they're chill guys.
Mhm.
They can't build brand around these guys and be like, oh, these are the guys that
Yeah.
everybody hates.
Yeah.
They don't do nothing.
Shoot,
they
Joker
win and chill.
Joker this year just got his line of sneakers. I mean, that's how remote he's been.
I guess in spite of it, I guess Tatum did win, and people was like, some people was clowning him for being corny, but that's just not enough. Like, corny isn't not enough to hate somebody. Like Tom Brady, people did not like that man.
Until they knew when he had 2 minutes remaining in a football game and he was down, he was gonna get a touchdown, and then you get, like you said, you get captivated, call him the GOAT, and move on with life. But I think we have given you something back since we now haven't been on the air for a while. So.
Yeah, this is a longer podcast than normal, but from the Just Nuggets podcast, my name is K. Kali. I am the podcast's favorite point guard. The Nuggets are playing the Clippers, who we've lost twice to, so please beat the Clippers.